The internet, smart and ever-present. We're constantly online, sometimes for several hours a day. The internet has become indispensable.
Our whole lives are online. You're only as smart as your Wi-Fi connection.
Huge volumes of data are moved. Huge, too, is the internet's hunger for energy.
The future is digital.
And this future needs space.
Amount of data is doubled every year, and this data needs to sit somewhere.
Millions of servers are in operation for the digital boom, but we rarely see them.
We need a major debate on how this mega digitization trend can be managed sustainably.
A data center at SAP, Europe's biggest software concern. The man in charge of the company's digital high-security bastions is Michael Wirth. This is the home of the cloud, thousands of high-speed computers around which our modern world revolves. They provide us with the information with which we work, watch TV, shop and play. The cloud is the other end of the internet, the machine behind our computers, tablets and smartphones, a huge, invisible and energy-intensive structure hardly anyone knows about.
Here in Walldorf, SAP has over 20,000 servers. They need power in order to compute and run applications.
And those power requirements are huge. The computer centers in Germany alone consume the volume of energy produced by 5 large power stations. Worldwide, around 40 plants operate solely for the internet. Were the internet a country, it would already have the 6th highest energy consumption in the world.
We are now in one of 2 emergency power supply halls. It gives you an idea of how much energy is needed to run a computer center of this size. This plant generates nearly 30 megawatts. That's the power requirement of a small town, or indeed several small towns in Germany.
A large proportion of the energy produced is consumed by the cooling system, because every computer gets hot when it is in use and generates heat.
Cooling technology needs 2 things, electricity and water. Current to power the fans and the pumps, and water for spraying on the heat exchangers, which you can see up here. We call this adiabatic cooling. When water is sprayed on a heat exchanger, it evaporates and generates cold. This is a highly efficient and economical method of generating cold. We use it as far as possible, until higher outside temperatures make it necessary to add mechanical cold, extremely large refrigerators, which generate cold with electricity.
The enormous amount of heat which servers develop remains a problem. IT experts and engineers worldwide are searching for sustainable solutions. We all do it. We log onto Facebook, Twitter or YouTube every day, often for hours. Billions of personal, mini levels of consumption result in the internet's ravenous hunger for energy. In Berlin, 4 young women, Anna, Martina, Marina and Natalia, share an apartment. Most of their household is organized online. The internet is an integral part of their lives.
The first thing we do when we get up is check our emails and see what's new on Facebook and Instagram. One important benefit of the internet for me is that I can have contact with people all over the world. I love to visit friends from other countries and stay in contact with them. A colleague and I work in the cloud. We share data and work on documents. I often use maps for directions, That's really helpful, especially in Berlin. It's the same with car sharing and bike sharing.
It's a tsunami of data the four generate, along with all other internet users on the planet. When we are surfing, we hardly ever think that behind all the websites there is a global infrastructure that is costly, complex, and hungry for resources. Computer centers are often housed in plain industrial buildings. Here in Frankfurt, the Interxion concern runs 12 data centers for its customers. More are under construction. Frankfurt is also the home of DKIX, the world's biggest internet node. Here, the high consumption of resources behind the internet becomes evident. Rooms full of batteries ensure an uninterruptible power supply, while argon gas provides high-tech fire protection for the valuable data, all to ensure that the internet is constantly available. Just like a steel concern, Interxion's data centers have their own substation. A huge transformer converts the incoming high tension of 110,000 volts. The power density in a modern computer center makes this essential. Whether it is cables as thick as your arm or huge switches, everything is duplicated, because this infrastructure must be fail-proof. By the way, together, the data centers in Frankfurt consume 20% of all the electricity used in this banking metropolis, more even than the city's huge international airport. The small town of Gransee in northern Germany is home to the Santarius family, some friends and a few animals. Professor Tilman Santarius is a writer, researcher and an expert on sustainable digitization. He teaches at several universities on the ecological, economic and social consequences of the digital society. He relaxes in distinctly analog fashion as an amateur farmer with a few sheep and a bit of pasture land. But the internet and its technology are even present in this idyllic rural setting.
Out here, I try to switch off my smartphones, but the sheep are online because attached to their ears are transponders in the form of RFID tags. The sheep can't transmit anything, but with a reader and the help of an induction field, they can be located. The internet provides us with some great opportunities, of course. It enhances our comfort level. Digital devices help us in everyday life. They make a lot of things easier and present us with thousands of fantastic new options. But that all has its price, because the internet consumes an enormous amount of power. And the question is, how much electricity do we have on this limited planet of ours?
The data industry is booming. Like here in Walldorf at SAP, new data centers are being built all over the world at record speed.
Because of the many applications emerging in the Internet of Things and blockchain areas and in other new technologies, I believe that the data capacity needed will increase more and more. SAP too is building new data centers for its cloud systems. In the background here, we see our latest data center. It's being extended to twice the capacity, even while it's still under construction. It's my belief that we will see a massive increase in computing times worldwide.
Alexa, erzähle mir einen Witz.
Here in the girl's smart shared apartment, the digital assistant is telling a joke. Necessary or superfluous? More and more digital helpers are online, and not only in our homes. Experts forecast that by 2020 there will be 50 billion devices in use. We're talking about the Internet of Things, online games, Netflix accounts and 4K television.
To watch a film at home, we used to drive to a videotheque and take out a DVD. Today we can stream, and through streaming we can save up to 1/3 of energy per film. What's not taken into account, however, is that film consumption via the internet is now increasing at a tremendous rate. Today, watching films accounts for 70% of the entire online data volume.
Today, even household devices get their own internet address. Radiators, lamps, power sockets and windows are controlled by Smart Home. Natalia from the shared apartment in Berlin thinks that's great.
This is the central server for our apartment. We can control all the rooms with it. I've created a good morning scene for myself with a playlist that gets me awake, and also a good night scene. What's really good is that I can see the temperature and check the CO2 level in my room. We have the server interface on our cell phones, so we can also control everything from outdoors.
Worldwide data traffic doubles every 18 months, and the next boom is already on the way. Industry 4.0 is the big hype at the Hanover Trade Fair. Machines that communicate with machines via the internet. Economist and engineer Ralf Hintermann from the Border Step Institute in Berlin advises official bodies on digitization issues.
The Internet's power requirement is increasing substantially, especially at the moment. Amongst other things, this is because we're collecting more and more data, everywhere. Take industry, for example. On display here at the Hanover Fair are machines equipped with sensors which are constantly collecting data. The current Internet and data center power requirement in Germany is around 13 tetrawatts per hour. That's roughly as much electricity as the city of Berlin consumes, and as much is currently generated offshore in the North Sea and the Baltic. And the hunger for energy will increase. It's forecast that in 5 or 6 years' time, the Internet will need 25% more power.
Augmented reality, virtual reality, or robots. Visitors to the fair in Hanover can try out what will soon be available everywhere. Hardly any sector will be without an internet connection.
The trend is towards bigger and bigger data centers. We use the term hyperscale data centers, which are the size of several football pitches and consume as much power as a small town or even a smaller city. And they are growing in number, built in particular by the really big internet concerns like Google, Facebook, Microsoft and Apple. At present, there are about 350 of them worldwide, and it's assumed that over the next 5 years, the number will almost double.
There are great hopes that digitization will enable major savings in resources like oil and gas to be made, especially with regard to cars. But here too, future visions are being generated that are linked to newer and newer data streams.
We already have smart cars, where so much is networked. They generate around 25 gigabytes of data per hour. As we move towards autonomous cars that drive themselves, this data volume will rise enormously. We're assuming 250 gigabytes per hour. Printed out on paper, we're talking about 200 tons, 4 truckloads, just for the data generated by one car in 1 hour. Driverless vehicles offer the chance to reduce the number of car bodies. If we don't all need to own a vehicle, but are able to take advantage of driverless cars through car sharing or robo-taxis, it will enable the number of car bodies to be radically reduced. After all, vast quantities of resources are needed just to manufacture cars. So that would be one benefit. The danger, however, is that driverless cars require an enormous data infrastructure. On the road, they scan their environment incessantly. Data streams are required for the laser, for the sensors, for the radar, and so on. Self-driving cars also need a constant data inflow of 3D map material for comparison with what is being scanned. And if a robo-taxi is in operation round the clock, it will generate a data volume of up to 4,000 gigabytes in one day. 1.5 million of these cars would generate the same data volume as the world's entire online population does today.
The Nordfjord in Norway. From here, it is not far to the Arctic Circle. Here, nature abounds. In the land of the trolls, the internet lives underground in a former mine. The Lefdal Mine Data Center is an ambitious project that could be a model for a more sustainable form of the internet. What has just arrived here is a kind of small data center. Inside this plain, white container from Germany are several hundred high-performance computers, pre-wired and ready to be connected up to the internet. On a special truck, they are driven deep into the mountain.
Here we have 3 containers arriving almost every week, and in 2 years from now, this level 3 will be completed with a 45 megawatt tier 3 facility. Over the next period, up to 10 years, we will fill the entire data center and this mountain hall.
Mats Andersen is the marketing director of what will be one of the world's biggest data centers. An area of over 120,000 square meters is available for computers. That's equivalent to 16 football pitches, distributed over several stories underground. The digital infrastructure will operate here in total safety. Broad roads will make it flexibly modifiable. The containers full of IT technology will only need to be placed in huge steel racks and connected up.
So Lefdal Mine Data Center can build out 200 megawatts. Now that is enough to take care of the entire Nordic region need for data center capacity. That is quite a lot. 200 megawatts is 20 times a large data center today.
That power output could easily meet the requirements of a modern city. The data center is still under construction. But one factor already speaks in favor of this unusual project proving successful. In addition to the highly original modular concept of computers in containers, Lefdal attaches importance to ecological and sustainable operation. The plant's operators have focused in particular on a cooling concept in which the adjacent fjord, which is more than 500 meters deep, will play a major role.
Here at Lefdal Mine Data Center, we use the fjord on the outside with the cold seawater that we bring into the data center to heat exchangers. And those heat exchangers interact with the closed freshwater circuit that goes out through the data center and to the designated IT areas. There are 2 cold pipes coming in with cold water, and there are 2 hot pipes going out with hot water. And here we can see the pipes going into the container racks and being distributed out to the different containers.
Norway, a land of agriculture and fishing, is placing its faith in a digital future. and also giving it fiscal backing. But the big advantage is electricity that is cheap and comes almost entirely from regenerative sources.
So data centers are about power, large amounts of power being transformed into bits and bytes, transported through network cables rather than power cables. Norway, as a country, has renewable power production. 98% of the power is either hydropower or wind power. This is unique in a global perspective.
Lefdal will be supplied by several hydroelectric power stations in the area that are fed by numerous glaciers. But nowhere near all data centers focus on green energy. Greenpeace has published a survey on the Internet's energy sources. Tilman Santarius is a member of the Greenpeace Supervisory Committee.
Greenpeace is one of the few NGOs worldwide that has already focused on the ecological consequences and risks of digitization. Last year, we published the study Clicking Green to see how clean or dirty the power is, which is used by all information and communication technologies. We were able to show that there are some trendsetters. Apple, for instance, operates its server and data parks with electricity that is 80% renewable, and that has to be welcomed. Google, Facebook, Switch, and a few other concerns derive at least half their electricity from renewable sources.
Basically, the digital sector is proud of its innovations. But what of its approach to energy? Some IT concerns at least have joined forces in the Green Grid initiative to reduce their carbon dioxide footprint. They include Google. The concern is the first to introduce artificial intelligence in order to reduce power consumption. DeepMind is a program which calculates data streams in advance, thus enabling servers to be utilized economically and helping to reduce the volume of cooling energy that is needed. But not every IT giant is following this example.
Amazon, for example, the world market leader for services involving cloud computing, simply draws its electricity from the mains, power that comes primarily from dirty coal-fired power stations.
There are better approaches, and once again it is the Scandinavians who are pointing the way. And it is data centers of all things which, it is hoped, will introduce an energy turnaround. One of the pioneers is the branch of Inturxion in the north of Stockholm. The roof is still full of classic cooling equipment, but the firm's management has long since had a rethink.
We use a lot of power and energy in the data center, and the majority of that is turned into heat that we need to remove from the equipment. And that ends up here on the roof, and then it ends up in the air. And then a few years back, we thought there might be a smarter solution for this than just sending it up in the air.
These servers run solely on green energy. They produce heat without emitting carbon dioxide. But that wasn't enough for Inturxion boss Peder Bank. He saw a value in the heat, a commodity that could be sold. Instead of releasing the waste heat into the atmosphere, he wanted to utilize it for heating via the district heating systems which are widespread in Stockholm. Together with local power companies, a solution was arrived at. In Scandinavia, ecological thinking is a natural element of society.
Yeah, I think the right way to look at data center in the future is to look at them as a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. So instead of looking at data centers as huge installations using all our renewable energy only, then look at them as heating station for the cities, and at the same time as they heat the water we need for our household, they also run the data we need for our smartphones.
One district heating center is located close to the Inturxion data center, and not by chance. This is all part of Stockholm's urban planning, which organizes such proximities. By utilizing the waste heat from servers, data centers can become not only climate neutral, but even climate positive.
The city of Stockholm has a goal to be totally fossil fuel free as a city by 2040. And the energy system of the city obviously being a very important part of a city's environmental footprint, we as a company supporting the city in their goal by making sure that we are becoming fossil fuel free by reusing data center waste heat.
Heating buildings with data? That's a concept with a future. Using green energy twice is a different approach from simply heating up the outside air with dirty electricity from coal.
The global availability of resources, of energy is limited. So we need, as humans, as humankind, we need to be careful about how we treat the resources from the earth, because they might have an end date.
That is why Tilman Santarius and friends organized a meeting with eco-activists and computer nerds. Entitled Bits und Bäume, Bits and Trees, the conference was scheduled for mid-November at the Einstein Center Digital Future in Berlin. The topic, sustainable digitization. And its goal?
At the conference, we also want to politicize the whole issue of the mega trend towards digitization, because up to now, politicians have focused mainly on broadband expansion or a little on tablets in schools. But the big question is, how can we as a society use and shape digitization? That's what we want to push forward at the conference and make demands on politicians, so that it becomes quite clear what kind of homework needs to be done.
A green internet is still in its infancy. The challenge for the still young IT industry and a clever digital policy is great. Today, for a change, the 4 girls from the smart shared apartment are out and about in analog style. Living life a tad less digitally would also help a little.
To us, to the smart flat share.
In the last federal election campaign, we had the slogan, digitization first, misgivings second. We say it should be the other way round. Every user can decide for him or herself how much permanent networking and how many digital devices they need to lead a happy life. Isn't it sometimes better to say as much digitization as necessary, but as little as possible?